I'll flick through it because it's nearly smoker time. We'll do them at the end. But just framing up the two sites. So we had two sites, one at Tulloona and Goondiwindi, which I've discussed in the last talk on the Downs. So the miling experiment has been going since 1996, and it was cleared about 10 years before that. 5 rates of N have been looked at over time at this site, but in fact we haven't applied any since 2004, so as you'll see, it's pretty good at growing nitrogen, this site. So 3 rates of phosphorus, so I'll keep flicking through. So opportunity crops again, a bit more even in its winter and summer split there. Sorry, other way around, yeah. 9 winter crops and 5 summer crops over time. Not much else to add there. 27-year-old country. So just things to remember about this site. So it's been long fallow, more often than not, particularly in the last few years. So it's been too dry and then too wet, and too dry again now. Has got a background nematode population there of about 2,800 thornii. And like I said, we haven't applied any nitrogen since 2004. And this year, just some pretty rough preliminary screening. You know, we had upwards of 200 kilos of N there again, so we just can't seem to run it down. So look, we planted Spitfire there this year, 24th of June, so a very late sowing for that part of the world, just to get some stubble cover more so, and to follow our grower cooperator there. We did harvest it, but we had a pretty low in-crop rain year of about 100 mils. So that's the yield and protein response there. So flat yield and flat protein. So really no story to tell there. We're growing everything on background nitrogen there because we're not applying any. We're still trying to run it down basically. In the earlier years where the cropping frequency was higher at this site, there was some pretty significant nitrogen responses, but as the fallow lengths increased and the cropping frequencies dropped off again in the last sort of 10 years, yeah, we're struggling to get a response there, so it's a pretty good block of dirt. So I suppose my take-home message there is know you're starting nitrogen, know what you're starting with. It makes a big difference. Goondiwindi we've already framed up in the last talk, so I won't dwell on that. But again, so it was Gregory wheat in 2013, long fallowed from wheat in 2011. So nematode population there of about 4,000, so I'm sure there's some agros in the room who've got better nematode populations than that, but it's pretty good. Only pre-plant N was applied, so no top dress or no in-crop applications at this site. Applied about 4 weeks before sowing, and we sowed on the 4th of June, harvested, and again much below average growing season rainfall of about 140 mils at this site. Looking at yield and protein, look, our 80 nitrogen rate was the optimum rate for yield, and our protein was getting up there on the left axis, but we still didn't make prime hard basically. In terms of yield, so there was a significant difference from the 40 kilos of N above the nil control. No significant difference from the 40 to the 80 to the 120 kilos of N applied. So our yield went from upwards of about 4.2 tonne per hectare. So something going on there with the starting soil nitrogen again in the background there, and we did have additional nitrogen present on the 80 kilo N plots from previous history there. In terms of protein at this site, we pretty much averaged 0.8% protein per 40 units of N that we applied pre-plant. So the first 40 units of N gave us 1.15% protein. The next 40, another nearly 1%, and then we sort of tailed off there up to the 120 rate at 0.38%. So, like I said, we still didn't get to prime hard there at 12.57. So, perhaps something going on there with nematodes, I suspect. In terms of economics, trying to make some sense of it all. So they're the grades we grew, ASW up to H2, so like I said, we didn't get to prime hard. And our fert costs there, so they were costs at the time of application, so our nitrogen cost of $1.15 per unit of nitrogen based on $530 a tonne urea, and our phosphorus cost of nearly $4 per kilo P using triple super at $800. So when you look at additional return, net of all of those costs, we get $81 a hectare additional return from the 80 kilos of N and the 5 kilo of P rate. So basically a yield and quality driven outcome there. So if additional return in dollars is your measure, well, there it is for this site. If a risk and reward ratio or return on investment type ratio is more your measure, well, this is the same data. Throws out a bit of a conundrum there with the 40 kilos of N being the best risk and reward ratio outcome. So despite it yielding less, the 40 kilos of N, obviously we didn't spend any money on P, so there's our difference. Something else to consider in terms of when you're framing up your nitrogen application strategy is the known risk of pre-plant applying, and we all know that. If there's a heavier reliance on in-crop nitrogen, I think there's some growing season rainfall analysis needs to be done. So for this site, Colonsay being the, Colonsay being these 6 years here in terms of growing season rainfall, and Tulloona being these from this side. If we looked for a fall of 15 mil to incorporate any in-crop N, well, we would have had 4 shots at the tidal average at Colonsay in the last 6 years per season, and 2.8 chances at Tulloona. So if you double that, and we're on a heavy clay, we probably need more like 20 to 25 mils to incorporate some in-crop nitrogen. They basically halve, so you get 2 chances at Colonsay in the last 6 years, and 1.5 at Tulloona. So a bit of a stark reminder there, I think, in terms of when you're looking at your nitrogen application strategy, just be mindful of the season that's in front of you and how you might best get the bang for your buck from nitrogen. So the take-home message is basically consider your starting soil nitrogen, your fallow length, and all those other factors that you're probably doing anyway, but really measure it. As Richard said, go for that yield response first before you start worrying too much about protein, so make sure you can maximise your yield. He talked about market premiums, and I agree, they need to be better. Do that rainfall or growing season rainfall analysis to make sure that you're going to have a reasonable chance of incorporating any in-crop nitrogen. Also consider your pre-plant, your nematode and crown rot background, which has a significant effect on your nitrogen uptake. And I think that's me. Just acknowledge our cooperators at Colonsay and Tulloona, Jack Goodrum down the road here, and FKG Gardner on the Downs, and particularly Griffiths Agronomy and David Hall for running the 2 sites for us. Thanks very much.